All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by all of our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks and Game Time. It's Brian Hines back, as always, with Alex Barth to break down the Patriots' 28-22 loss on Sunday to the Los Angeles Rams, the late comeback bid. Fell short. Drake Maye throwing an interception to kind of clinch the loss there again to the Rams, 28-22, dropping the Patriots to 3-8 on the year. And Barth, I feel like it's only fair. We've started definitely our last two shows with the coaching staff, maybe even more, and kind of feels like Gerard Mayo and his staff are back under the microscope. After yesterday's game, there's kind of like that Titans game again, where there's some key points throughout the game that may or may not have, lost his team the game. So I want to start there and we'll get into those specific points. But just overall, again, that Titans game, we didn't feel great. It was a good bounce back from the coaching staff against Chicago. Now, how do you feel about the coaching staff as they still kind of ride this roller coaster? And it wasn't a great performance for them against the Rams yesterday.
Look, this was one of their worst games of the year. I mean, it's right up there with the Jets game on Thursday night week 3. It wasn't good from in-game coaching management, which everybody knows is kind of my big thing. I put a lot of weight on that, to questionable X's and O's decisions. I don't know that we need to do as much. We've talked in past games about the team just not being ready emotionally. I don't know that was as much the issue in this one, but it's that lack of consistency. They went from one of their best performances last week to one of their worst performances this week. And you can't have that. Like, this team needs to establish a level of consistency in order to move forward. You can't keep bouncing back and forth from one or the other. And it starts with the coaching staff.
Yeah, especially with the talent on this roster, right? Like, the games they win, you walk away being like, okay, they were coached up well. Like, it was a good day from the coaching staff. Like, they need that in order to win and order to elevate this talent. And you're not consistently getting it, which, again, it's a young staff. A lot of these guys are, first year in their roles. So you would expect some bumps and bruises along the way. But I just want like 2 straight games, 2 games in a row where they seem to be building something that would seem to be positive, and it can't seem like they're getting there.
Right.
Again, like we talked about the players with that rookie roller coaster, seems like the staff is kind of on that. And it wasn't all bad. I thought AVP had a good game, and we can get into him and Drake.
AVP was fine. If and you guys know I love to go to this line. If AVP was their biggest issue in this game, they probably win. If AVP performing at the level he performed at was their biggest issue in this game, I think they win that game.
Yep. But you mentioned there were some in-game coaching decisions that were questionable. I had 4, maybe 5 big ones. I kind of wanted to run through them quickly.
I had 5.
You had 5? Okay. We'll see how our lines. The first one, I just went in chronological order.
Sure.
The first one, you're up 7-0. You have the ball on the 37-yard line. You pass on a 54-yard field goal. You punt, you net. They took a delay of game, and then Bryce Behringer hit a touchback. So you net 22 yards on the punt. The Rams needed just one play, a 25-yarder, to surpass the point where they would have been if they just missed the field goal. So you pass on a 54-yard field goal. Joey Sly's warm-ups weren't great, but still, big leg kicker, go up 10-0 early in that game, and they opt to punt. How'd you feel about that one?
Well, first, let's say they're in that situation because Vidarian Lowe lines up incorrectly, and Michael Jordan too. The penalties on Vidarian Lowe, but Michael Jordan's lined up incorrectly as well. That reflects on the coaching. So let's put that in. That's why they're in that situation. Let's do this. So for each of these decisions, right? Out of 5, love it, like it, meh, don't like it, hate it, right? That gets a don't like it for me. I didn't quite hate it because, like you said, like, it was noticeable that Sly was struggling specifically in that direction, specifically from that range in warmups. And as I always say, the decision to go for it's only as good as the play you call. If you know, like, if Sly goes to you and says, "Coach, I can't make the kick," I mean, do you say, "No, we believe in you, you go out there"? Like, that's definitely an option. But like, that wasn't the worst one for me. But I didn't like the decision. I still would have kicked it. I would have tried to hype Sly up and give it a shot. If it's, if you're 8-3 and you're trying to hang on and you got a great defense, sure, that's one thing. I think you got to take a shot there. So I'll give that if 1 is hate it, 5 is love it. It's like a 2 out of 5 decision for me.
Yeah, I would have been right on a 2. I get the reasoning behind it, and someone points out in the chat here, and I was going to bring this up, like the Rams' last punt of the game was right on that same area of the field, same direction, and that was a field goal to go up 2 scores and potentially end the game, and they, declined. And maybe that had something to do with make Drake Maye like drive the length of the field, but there was definitely something going on with that direction of the stadium. But it's a 54-yarder. He still hit from like 52, 53 in warmups. Joey Sly.
It's not like it's Nick Folk.
I know. Like he said, even after the game, like it was right on the edge of his range. So I would have, again, I get the reasoning and the decision, but I probably would have just leaned, try it. Because again, you miss. They only needed 1 play to get to that yard line anyway. So I'm with you 2, right around 2 on that scale. The next one, again, going chronologically, 4th and goal at the Rams 2-yard line. This was when I think it was 21-10. And then, so they take another delay of game, and then they kick a field goal to make it 21-13. So a 1-score game, but they gave up scoring drives on 3 out of their last 4. The one drive they didn't was the missed field goal to end the half, and then the Rams went 7 plays, 72 yards, and a touchdown right after that to take a 2-possession lead. So did you like make it a 1-score game there, or would you have, be a little more aggressive and try to score a touchdown while you're down there on the 2-yard line?
I think this is where we differ, because there were 2 field goals, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, that I looked at. They had a 4th and 3 from the 13.
Yep.
At the end of the second quarter, down 7. And then they had the one you're talking about, the 4th and goal from the 3, down 11 in the third quarter. So the first one, I give a 1. I hated that. 7-point game. You're up against a good offense. You're trying to go punch for punch. You're going to pin them pretty, like they're going to be at the 13, right? If you don't get it. That one I would have gone for. That one, I would have pushed it. I did not like that decision. The one you're talking about in the third quarter, I give that a 3. I give that a meh. You could go either way. You can sell me on that either way. You kick still makes it a 1-score game. You need a 2-point conversion, but it makes it a 1-score game. They had just gotten stopped on the goal line on back-to-back plays. So maybe they just didn't think they were getting the push. And again, what's the point of running the play if you don't believe you can get it? Not that it's great that you don't believe you can get 3 yards, but if you don't think you can get them, maybe they'd exhausted their 2-point plays there trying to get in. Could have called the Vidarian low play there instead of waiting, instead of sitting on it. So I hated that one. That one I could go either way. I hated the one earlier with it 17-10. I on one hand, I get it. Take the points. They'd ripped off a couple touchdowns, but like the offense was getting going. You needed to go punch for punch there. The one in the second quarter bothered me a lot more than the one in the third quarter.
Was that right after the 2-minute warning? They kicked a 32-yarder from the Rams 13, 4th and 3, that one?
Yes.
Okay.
They're down 17-10?
It was 14-7, so
14-7,
they made it
14-10,
and then the Rams had the long drive. They doinked the field goal.
Yeah.
So it was 14-10, and then the big play out of half, 21-10, and then the other field goal, they drive down 4th and goal from the 2. The one, we'll talk about Van Pelt again. I liked his day for the most part. Under center run on 3rd and goal at the Rams 2. Didn't love that call, and it felt like they just wanted a yard, like as you were just saying, like they didn't get a push. Mayo even said on that one, if it was 4th and 1, they would have gone for it. So they probably just wanted 1 yard to make that decision easier. But like you have Drake Maye, he's been playing so well. Like you go back-to-back runs inside the 5, not even the threat of him in shotgun. Maybe I know they don't want to let him keep it, but not even the threat of letting him keep it. Didn't love the play call before that to set that up. So
Van Pelt had said, when he was talking about, are they going to run Drake Maye?
Exact decision, like example,
specific situations. It's a good situation to call it.
Yeah. So the next one was the Vidarian Low touchdown that you mentioned. They make it 28-19. They kick the extra point which was then blocked. But the decision making to kick the extra point was similar situation in London a few weeks ago against the Jaguars. They're down 9, but they decided to go for 2 against the Jaguars, which they also failed. In London, there was 8:22 left in the fourth quarter. This time, yesterday against the Rams, there was 12:45 left in the fourth quarter, so a little bit more time on the clock. I'd imagine, Gerard kind of explained it, that every situation is different. That's why that was what I was getting at with the extra 4 minutes, but still down 9, different process. Did you like? I know in the Jacksonville game, I think if I remember correctly, neither of us felt really strongly one way or another. But did you like the decision this time to kick the extra point, try to make it an 8-point game there instead of going for the 2-point conversion?
I think the Jacksonville game, I said I ultimately would have rather had them kick. So for the sake of consistency, I'll say kick. And I like kicking there. Now, you got to block it. You got to get the play blocked.
You got to make
the kick up. Right. If you can't make the kick, it's completely irrelevant. And that's a massive issue. You shouldn't be getting extra points blocked. But, yeah, I mean, I'll be consistent from I think I said kick then. I'll stick with kick. If they'd gone for 2, though, I get it. That comes down to personal preference. That comes down to philosophy. There's a strong argument to be made for going for 2. There's a strong argument to be made for kicking. Just if you're going to kick, don't let them block it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. I could go either way, but they've gone both ways and they failed both of them now. So not a great spot to be in. But I didn't have a major preference either way. I usually lean. I think after the Jaguars game, I usually said go for 2. I just like to be a little bit more aggressive there and think that might help you later in the game. But I don't have a major preference either way. So, and then the last one was right at the end of the game, that final Rams punt. It was right before the 2-minute warning, the last
2:22 when they punted, 2:14 after the penalty.
It goes out of bounds at the 5-yard line, but there was an illegal formation penalty. They take the 5 yards to put the ball at the 10-yard line instead of making them re-kick it. Mayo was asked this morning. He just said he didn't want to take the chance of getting backed up even farther inside the 10. That felt like a questionable decision too. I get there's a chance you could be backed up. Ethan Evans, the Rams punter, he's second this year in I-20 percentage. He's 4th in lowest touchback percentage. So he's
won me my fantasy matchup with Taylor.
There you go. So you were kind of split there. You were kind of secretly cheering for that, but I still just I would have rather made him do it. Prove you can make him back him up even farther. And if not, you put the ball in Marcus Jones's hand, who's been one of your most dangerous players, and maybe you spark a return. So the 5 yards there, I don't think it was worth it. I would have made them re-kick and make them do it again. But did you feel the same about that final punt there?
By the way, you got a big game tonight. Tied 4-4, Tommy Townsend.
I know.
So initially I didn't like it, but to me, in that situation, okay, why aren't you making him re-kick? I figure you don't put the time back on the clock after the penalty, which, by the way, could change because there was an issue with this in college football this year with Oregon did something like this where they purposely put 12 men on the field. I think it was 13 men on the field on defense, just knowing that even if they get called for the too many men penalty, the play is still run. The time's still going to come off the clock. But for now, that time doesn't get put back on. So I looked at it as, all right, you went 8 seconds on the first punt. If you make them re-kick, maybe that's the difference between running 1 or 2 plays before the 2-minute warning, or if you have a decent return, that probably gets you to the 2-minute warning. So that's where I was again, using our scale, hate it, don't like it, love it. That's where I was I don't like it. But for Mayo to come out this morning on EEI and say, no, we did it because we didn't want to give them another chance to pin us. They already pinned you. And 0. Absolutely hate it now. Because that's not just conservative coaching, that's coaching scared.
Yeah.
You're not going to get pinned much further back than the 10. You're not. And it'd be one thing if their punt return game was a mess and they're muffing punts left and right and it's raining. Fine. You have an all-pro caliber punt returner. One of the top 5 weapons on your team is Marcus Jones as a punt returner. You got to give him a shot there to make a play for you and give you a chance to win the game. I think that was the worst decision of the game. I know a lot of people are bothered with turning down the 54-yard field goal, and I'm not saying that was great. The worst decision of the game was not making the Rams re-kick at the end. That was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, just make them do it. Again, Ethan Evans has been a good punter this year in those situations, but prove that he can do it twice in a row. And if he can't, then you put the ball in Marcus Jones's hands. And so many times, and especially in clutch situations this year, he's broken out a big return. And if that could have just sparked that drive a little bit more, then maybe Drake doesn't feel like he needs to go for a home run play to pop Douglas there. If you pick up 20 yards on a return, like the trickle down effect could have made a real impact there. So I didn't love that. I would have made them repunt, but yeah. And the reasoning, as you said, like this morning that Mayo explained wasn't a good one either. Coaching scared was a good way to put that. So those were kind of the big decisions that I had from Mayo, kind of those in-game situations.
Game management.
It does seem, in-game management. It does seem overall he is very on the conservative side with these things, which that's usually how it trends with these defensive, head coaches, that they are a little bit more conservative. But it would be one thing if, again, he's 8-3 and they're winning all these games and he's being a little bit more conservative and the defense is playing well. But for a team that needs to win on the margins a lot, like, I would like to see a little bit more aggressiveness out of him with some of these fourth down calls and decisions to, try to steal points when you can, because you need every little inch you can get if you're this team with the talent level. You have to win on the margins, and I think some of these are kind of costing him. So I don't know if you agree with thinking he's kind of overall. I know the math, if you go by the math, he says he is really a bit conservative, but how do you feel he's approaching these as a whole? And do you think he's developing some kind of process, I want to say, or do you think he's just kind of going with it and trying to figure it out right now?
It's tough to say. It feels like it's moment to moment, which, on the whole, this is what I hate about analytics. They put you in boxes, and I think every decision, every moment is truly unique, and it should be addressed as such. So I don't mind approaching it moment to moment. I just don't think he's making the right decisions in the moment more often than not. So the process doesn't bother me. The big picture process, I guess, doesn't bother me, but like, at a certain point, you got to have your finger on, even if you want to be conservative, you can be conservative more often than not. But you got to have your finger on, hey, so Mayo said after the game, he never felt like the Rams controlled the game. And I understand why he said that, because Patriots had the ball for 37 minutes, their highest time of possession since December 2019. They ended up out-repping the Rams by almost 20 plays. Like, in that sense, yeah, the Rams never had control. Yet they're still beating you. And beating you pretty convincingly. At a certain point, you got to go thumb on the pulse and realize, like, we got to get a little aggressive here somewhere. We got to get a spark. And that, to me, is more what's missing. Is I don't mind looking at all of the situations individually, but you also have to look at them in the context of what's going on in the game. And after a certain number of conservative decisions, when you're still trailing, you got to try something.
Yep. I agree. And I want to talk about,
and just to go back, the punt one, like, the first four are conservative decisions. There's option A, aggressive, option B, conservative. The punt one's not even conservative. Like, the punt one is just, again, coaching scared. That's its own thing. That's its own separate issue. Like, if you're a conservative coach, you're a conservative coach. I wouldn't put that one in the category of conservative.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. But I want to talk about his coordinators too. I know we mentioned AVP a little bit. Before we do that, very quickly, I want to tell you guys about Prize Picks as well, where you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You just make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. On Prize Picks, Barth and I submit our Patriots lineup every game day, and you can join in or extend it to the entire league with stars like Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Patrick Mahomes, and more. What's Monday night tonight?
Texans.
Oh boy,
what's going to be a worse
out.
showing at AT&T? Is it going to be that Tyson Paul fight, or is it going to be this game?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well,
at least we'll be able to watch this game.
The Tyson Paul fight at least had Sidney Thomas we could watch, but I don't think this game's going to have that. But you can, I don't know if you want to put Cooper Rush in your Prize Picks lineup, but maybe go on the Texans side. CJ Stroud, Nico Collins comes back. Joe Mixon's had a really good year. So put those guys in your lineup, and it's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, going to Mayo's coordinators. I want to start defense actually with DeMarcus Covington, because I feel like his game plan and their defensive strategy in this one is getting a lot of attention for not using Christian Gonzalez to shadow one of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, who both had pretty good days. Gonzalez was playing primarily along the boundary. I didn't mind it. I feel like I'm on an island. I think I actually have Taylor on my side. We were texting back and forth about this today. I didn't mind it as much as everyone is, talking about it. I minded something else, which I'll talk about. But how did you like Covington's plan with Christian Gonzalez in that secondary yesterday?
I mean, I don't think it made a lot of sense. Going into the game, fine. You want to try something, you want to try a wrinkle going into the game, fine. Once those two started beating you the way they did, an adjustment needs to get made. And look, if you put Gonzalez on Cooper Kupp, there's still Nacua, and he's still going to be facing the same guys and vice versa. But you limit it to one guy. It allows you to kind of know where to pay attention in coverage. It forces the Rams to become a little more one-dimensional. I mean, it was shades of the Isaiah McKenzie game against the Bills a couple years ago, where it's like, how many times are you going to let this guy, or in this case, these guys, beat you before not changing, before changing something? And I know, like, okay, maybe you can make an argument for it again from the jump, but it clearly didn't work. Like, the evidence is there. It didn't work. Something needed to change.
So I didn't mind it because you can't sit in man-to-man against the Rams all game. And Mike Pellegrino even said that kind of throughout the week, right? Like their bunches and their pick plays that Sean McVay will do, like you can't sit in man-to-man against them. They'll pick you apart. You even saw early in that game, seemed like they were having some communication issues. Duggar mentioned that after the game in the secondary. And then you go to zone, you're playing some of that zone. And I know Puka and Cooper were away from Christian Gonzalez. McVay even said he was scheming them away from him, but it was just bad execution. And I think that comes back to, John Jones had a bad game. It wasn't a good game for Marcus Jones. You just saw Marco Wilson get cut because he didn't play yesterday. So I just feel like there were coverage busts and there were breakdowns that really, emphasized, the guys away from Christian Gonzalez. Now, I will say the red zone plan was not good. They had times where Christian Gonzalez was on the boundary with two tight ends on the line, right, and there were, you saw Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua have a touchdown. They should have had Christian Gonzalez over them on those plays, in the red zone. So I didn't like the red zone plan. The rest of it, I just thought it was, fine. They just went away from Gonzalez. But you saw even the times, they did play some man. They had one, Gonzalez was on Nacua, and Colby Parkinson just burns Christian Ellis for a touchdown. So they were going to pick on other guys anyway, in the man-to-man coverage, because I think that comes back to, you're not getting your play in your cornerback room that you need outside of Christian Gonzalez. So, and things settled down. Like second half, Puka only had one catch for 6 yards. Kupp, 65% of his catches or yards came on that one play, which on the cover zero blitz, which that was my problem. They blitzed Matt Stafford on over 60% of his dropbacks. That's not something I would do against the veteran quarterback. He went 12 for 17, 217 yards and 3 touchdowns against the blitz. So that would have been my adjustment, is stop blitzing the hell out of this guy. But I didn't mind so much, the man-to-man and not shadowing one of these guys with Gonzalez.
Yeah, look, most of it wasn't good. And what you're saying are things that happened. I don't think they defend the game plan, though. Because, okay, it wasn't working elsewhere, but making sure Gonzalez is always with one of those guys would have made it worse. Even if you're going to play zone, to your point, there were some times not in the red zone where Gonzalez, they would stack Nacua and Kupp to one side and Gonzalez on the other. And Sean McVay said after the game, they talked about during the week, they made a point that they weren't going to throw to the side of the field to Christian Gonzalez. So if you have Gonzalez follow those guys at the very least, even if you're still going into zone, at the very least, you're taking one of those options away and you're taking one side of the field away. The Rams basically figured out we can put these two guys on the opposite side of the formation Gonzalez is in, whatever that is, and not have to worry about them. So to not adjust out of that, to me, is still a problem. And I get what you're saying, but I can't imagine having Gonzalez cover one of those guys would have made it worse. There were coverage breakdowns, you're right. And maybe just one of Nacua or Kupp burns you. But that, to me, is more manageable. It's the old Bill Belichick thing. Put your number one corner on the number two receiver and then double the number one with a ton of attention. Like, that would have made sense. And maybe you'd still have the coverage bust. And the thing that really stood out in that game based on the coverage was how thin they are at corner, which is not something we saw coming in the summer. They should have activated Alex Austin for this game. Maybe he wasn't cleared, but like, if he was, and Mayo made it sound a couple weeks ago like he was good to go.
He's been a full participant for 2 weeks of practice now. So
Marco Wilson has not played well. I would have made the move they made today on Saturday. I don't know that it would have been better, but Austin has been a better player than Wilson going back to the spring. If you're somebody who is tired of the wide receiver talk in the draft, is bored by a tackle, wants them to take a defensive player, wants them to take a corner, Will Johnson, Travis Hunter playing corner, like, be loud this week. This is your week, because that game, they need more in coverage. Jonathan Jones has lost a step. Marcus Jones, I thought, was the best of the group, but he had, at size, at the end of the day, size is size. He's a slot corner. They need help on the boundary. Like you said, Marco Wilson got cut. I don't know why we haven't seen Isaiah Bolden. I would have thrown him out there. It's not so much, I guess, let me say this to your point and to Taylor's point about why they covered the way they did and why moving Gonzalez maybe wouldn't have changed everything. It might not have changed everything, but it would have been a change. To continue to get beat like that and not adjust, whether it be moving Gonzalez, whether it be a higher percentage of man or zone, whether it be lessening the blitz, whether it be putting more personnel out there, right? Getting Isaiah Bolden out there. To not adjust, period, is the issue to me more than the initial plan, because it wasn't working. Whatever the reasoning behind it, it wasn't working, and you can't continue trying it. At a certain point, you can't be like, well, it'll click on eventually. No, once you get to the second half of the game and you're down 2 scores, it's not working. It's not going to work.
They did settle down, though, in the second half. But
did they settle down, or did the Rams just not have the ball because they were going on these long drives, so the statistics went down?
They did have long drives, but you come out and you give up the big play to Cooper Kupp. I didn't love. I get you want to be aggressive, but again, going back to the blitzing thing, I wouldn't have done that. Their next drive, they go 7 plays, 72 yards, touchdown. A lot of that came on the ground, and it was Tutu Atwell had the big catch, and then the touchdown was the one to Parkinson. So they put Christian Gonzalez in man on Puka Nacua, and then someone else gets burned. And then after that, they go 3 and out, and then they punt at the end of the game, and then it was the kneel down drive, so that didn't matter. So, like, they had the big explosive and then 1 touchdown drive, and then which didn't come on Kupp or Nacua, and then it was back-to-back punts. So,
look, I just think
but
that drive where they took the clock from 6 down to 2, where they punted, which is the punt that Jerod Mayo declined the penalty on, or accepted the penalty on. They're like trying to run clock, and they're still throwing. There were multiple times on that drive that they threw the ball, and I'm thinking, wait, does McVay have more Shanahan in him than I thought? Like, why are you putting the ball in the air? Because they knew that right there should tell you a lot. Just like the Jags running the ball 17 times in a row in the London game. By the way, this game, incredibly similar to that Jaguars game. Hot start, fell apart, bad coaching. It had that 2-point conversion decision, very similar. Just like the Jags game where they ran it 17 times. And that told you all. And by the way, run defense was not good against one of the worst running teams in the league. In this one, the Jags trying to run the clock, felt comfortable throwing because they knew they could throw. That should tell you a lot.
Yep. And just the last thing, if you're going to blitz that much, again, over 60% of his dropbacks, they only pressured Stafford on like a quarter of his
Yeah, that was a whole other
effect.
issue.
So we mentioned building on that pass rush performance last week, and we knew they weren't going to get 9 sacks again. Just barely any pressure on him for especially
6
again
pressures.
Yeah, the amount of time he blitzed. And good to see Christian Barmore out there. You know, he took on some double teams. He helped Christian Ellis get loose on some stunts, but obviously, 21 snaps, still working his way back into things. Yannick Ngakoue, only 14, 15 snaps, I think
14.
it was. So he's still easing back into things, but they need more of a pass rush. You hope that's where it's going to come from as those two guys get more in football shape. But especially if you're going to blitz that much, you need to get home. And they just couldn't, to make life even harder on their secondary.
I mean, that cover 0, the Cooper Kupp touchdown, that tells you about this game. They brought 7 with the 6-man protection, still didn't get home. Jelani Tavai's the hot player. He's unblocked, gets caught up in the wash, ends up running into a block. And you essentially have one Rams player blocking 2 defenders. The whole point of cover 0, and look, Jonathan Jones didn't have a great game, but like the whole point of cover 0 is Jones is off because that's a hard play to cover. You're not expecting an accurate throw. You're calling cover 0 with the idea that at the very least, you're turning up the heat on the quarterback and he's throwing off his back foot or he's throwing through contact and he's not going to be able to get a lot on the ball. You go the play at the end of Super Bowl 53, the famous cover 0 blitz there. That's what happens. I'm blanking on who the receiver was. The receiver is open if Goff can really put the ball on him, but he has a rusher in his face. He ends up, it's a duck, comes up 10 yards short. Stephon Gilmore's right there.
Was that Brandon Cooks?
I don't think it was Cooks because Cooks was the McCourty one.
Yeah, I know the breakup
was he both
Cooks.
of them?
I'll look it up. The
point being, and who was in? Was it Van Noy or Hightower who was in Goff's face on that play?
I think Van Noy.
Van Noy in Goff's. So like that's what that's supposed to look like.
It was Cooks.
It was Cook. It was Cooks. All right.
Yeah.
I remembered the McCourty one. I'm like, it couldn't have been him for both. But the point of that play is like you're trying to force the quarterback to make an uncomfortable throw. Not only did Stafford get to make that throw with the set base, he's able to step up in the pocket. The fact that there is any semblance of a pocket when you're rushing 7 is things have already gone horribly wrong. There should not be a pocket for him to step up into. So like that right there, you can blitz all you want. If you're going to allow a pocket on a 7-man rush, you're not going to win the game, plain and simple.
Yep. Not good enough. But let's hit on AVP and some Drake Maye before we do that. We all love going to football games in the fall. Beautiful day at Gillette Stadium yesterday. Or, if you want to go see some BC, Billy O and his new quarterback, or any other game where no matter where you're listening from, or, basketball season's in full force, hockey season is going on, and we get all of our tickets to any game on Game Time, and they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting your tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier, because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Patriots are on the road heading to Miami this weekend. If you are in the area and you want to go to Hard Rock, it's $57 is the cheapest get in on the Game Time app right now. Or back home December 1st, the week after, welcoming Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts to town. Cheapest on the Game Time right now is $82, or you can use the Game Time Picks feature and move down to the lower corner for $120. Cheapest right now with Game Time Picks. So head to Game Time for their lowest price guaranteed and other in-app features such as their seat views, all-in pricing, and of course the Game Time Picks, which makes it even easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and all your other tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, AVP.
You want something wild here
Sure.
on Monday Night Football? So there's already been enough questions about AT&T Stadium, right? With the sun coming in and putting up the curtains. They tried opening the roof for the game tonight. So the fans want the windows blocked, the curtains, get the sun out of the players' eyes. Their answer was, let's open the roof. Let's let more sun in. A piece of metal fell off the roof.
Oh, good.
Stadium's literally falling apart.
Good. Things are
roof is
going
now
great in
closed.
Jerry's world down there.
I can't. It didn't hit anybody apparently, which feels incredibly lucky. If you go look on Twitter, it's on Twitter. It's not a small piece of metal. It's probably about the size of like. I'm just looking here because there's a Gatorade cooler next to it for comparison.
Oh, geez.
That's not a small piece of metal.
No.
Jeez.
All right. So good old. Maybe it's a sign they're tearing down the stadium to build a new one so they can block out the sun and go the opposite direction. But Alex Van Pelt, I thought it was one of his best games of the year, and maybe why it coincided with Drake Maye, setting some career highs on Sunday. I thought he had a good plan. You saw some good wrinkles. The Vidarian Lowe touchdown. We saw Marcus Jones offensive package. It wasn't perfect. I mentioned that third down run earlier before they decided to kick the field goal. The last field goal drive too, like way too many runs. Like it felt like they were really milking the clock. Kind of goes back to what we were talking about in Tennessee in those end to half situations where they just get really hyper focused on picking up a first down on certain times instead of, trying to get chunk gains and keep moving in those instances. But overall, give Van Pelt credit. I thought it was a really good plan and performance from him, one of his best games. In that offense, it still seems to be kind of trending in the right direction. So I thought it was a good AVP game.
I thought, again, the big knock for me is just there are times, it's not the entire game. There are times where they get too fixated on like 1 or 2 yards on these important drives where the clock is a factor. It's been a problem at the end of the first half a couple times. This was later in the game, as you mentioned, but I thought the creativity was good. I wish we'd gotten to see that trick play where Jalen Pokefall started, but
100% going to be a touchdown, apparently.
Yeah, all right. We missed a couple of, or they mixed in a couple trick plays. I thought the usage of Kendrick Bourne was great. So, like, here we go, right? Last week, wow, this is one of the best games of the year for the coaching staff, except they benched Kendrick Bourne for KJ Osborne. Now, here we are this week. This is one of the worst games of the year for the coaching staff, except they actually put Kendrick Bourne on the field for the third year in a row. I had to do this thing, Brian, where Kendrick Bourne, and I think it's been like 3 different co-hosts now on Patriots Beat that have seen me do this. Kendrick Bourne looks good, gets benched for a petty reason. I have to spend a month red in the face reminding everybody Kendrick Bourne's a good player while the team goes through the rest of their options, none of which are as good as Kendrick Bourne. Finally, the team realizes maybe we should put Kendrick Bourne on the field again. They put him back on the field, and he's electric. He is their best playmaker. This is the 3rd time that has happened. That's insane. And I know if you have a bad story about every roommate you've ever had, you're probably the bad roommate. I do subscribe to that theory. And yes, the fact that Kendrick Bourne has had an issue with 3 different offense coordinators, I think this is the exception to the rule, especially when you look at how they've done managing and developing and judging wide receivers as a whole. This guy needs to be on the field. I get why Kayshon Boutte gets the most snaps. I'm fine with that. Kendrick Bourne needs to be a regular part of the offensive game plan. Boutte, Bourne, Douglas. Those are the guys that are going to make plays for you. And, we can fix. I get that that's not exactly the 07 Patriots. I'm talking about getting through this season, giving Drake Maye the best opportunity to succeed, right? Kendrick Bourne needs to be on the field for a team that is starved for production and skill at the wide receiver position. This guy cannot be on the bench. He can't be. I said it like it was insane last week. And I hear people, he doesn't run great routes. Oh, he commits penalties. Show me a receiver on the Patriots that's an expert route runner. Show me a wide receiver on the Patriots that's not committing penalties, that's not dropping passes. Yeah, he's not prime Randy Moss. Fine. He's as good an option as they have, and by a significant margin, he should be playing.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it. Even if he's making some of those mental lapses, the skill set, the ability to separate, the plays he can make with the football in his hand outweighs the negatives. And you're even seeing the big play to me was the growth between him and Drake, that back shoulder ball late in the game, right? That was one they tried against Tennessee, and it was almost intercepted. The communication wasn't spotty, and then they come back to it in a big situation. I believe it was on the last drive. It was one of the last 2 drives to kind of kickstart one of those. And it was a great ball. And, they read it the same, back shoulder, got things going. So you need Kendrick Bourne out there. I do think it's Bourne, Boutte, and Pop that's your 3. I know Jalen Polk has a role in the 12 personnel, but another penalty, no catches. It's just not going great for him right now. They don't want to play Javon Baker. So if that's your 3 and 11, stick with that. Get Kendrick Bourne the ball.
I don't think we're going to see Javon Baker on offense this year.
I
think that's you listen to Mayo's answer today about they didn't like what he did on the kick returns. I don't know what he did wrong on the 40-yarder. I get that. That other one, you come out indecisive about whether or not to knee it, muff it, and you try to hurdle a guy. I understand, but we're not going to see him for. And get ready, Brian, for this offseason when we're talking about the wide receiver room. What about Javon Baker? He could do what Kayshon Boutte did. Javon Baker, Kayshon Boutte comp. That is going to be at the top of the charts, I think, when we get to the spring here in New England.
And Tet had quite the game this weekend.
He did.
That was an impressive showing. But
so are you Tet at the top of the draft now, more than a tackle? Because neither Kelvin Banks was fine. Will Campbell did not have a good game against Florida. Kelvin Banks was fine.
I think I like Tet better than the tackles just as prospects right now. So probably I'm still leaving the door open for a defensive player, especially, I have concerns with T. Higgins' durability, but watching T. Higgins last night in that Sunday night game, it was like, oh boy, put that with Drake Maye. That would be fun. And that's someone you only have to pay, right? You don't have to use a draft pick. So I'm not in long way to go. Still a lot of evaluation and big games for all these guys to play, but I'm still not closing the door on an edge. You mentioned Will Johnson at corner, just kind of going best player available, which in this draft might be a defensive player, but Tet's going to be hard to pass, and we'll see with those tackles. But
I think because he's been a little inconsistent, trade down, Tet, trade back up, Ursary, that's looking pretty good. I'll tell you this.
If you could trade down and get Tet or even one of the tackles at that point, all for that. That would be great.
I'll tell you this, every year we do the mock drafts on this show, right? And by the time we get to the third one, it's because we want to try different scenarios every time, and we're scraping. Remember we did the wheel last year? We had the wheel make our picks. I don't think we're going to have trouble coming up with different scenarios this year. I think it's all going to be on the table.
Yep. Big last 6 weeks to figure out some of these things, but we'll see. 6 weeks too. Jeez.
It's crazy. There's only 6 games left. I realized that today. That's wild. 7 weeks, 6 games. It that.
But
and more if they make the playoffs, but
oh boy.
We almost got to do path talk. We were that close.
If they won last week, would have been perfect. But Taylor's waiting to get on Pat's Daily Live coming after this. So just let's wrap up with some Drake Maye thoughts. Career high in completions with 30, passing yards 282. If you want the nerd stats, career high 86.5 adjusted completion percentage, 8.3% completion over expected. In Barth's favorite stat, plus 0.27 expected points added.
Expected. Well, as long as he won in the hypothetical, as long as he was good hypothetically, I don't care what he did for real. As long as he's good hypothetically, that's all I care about. That's the Bruins guy coming out at you, the expected goals, right? It hypothetically looks good, so it'll work out. It'll even out in the end. No, we're not a bad team. The other shoe's got to drop. That's definitely what's happening.
No, the Bruins' expected goals are bad. Okay.
Oh, is it actually bad?
Probably. I haven't checked. The only Bruins analytics I'm up to date on, because I just looked it up the other day when they sent Matt Poitras down, is he's analytically their best forward, and they sent him down because we can't have those, around here. So, but the stats are good for Drake Maye. I thought he just did a really good job of playing quarterback, right? He said 2 weeks ago he wanted to win as a passer. He only scrambled 3 times. It was his quickest game in terms of time to throw, his shortest average depth of target, really sharp, underneath, accurate in those areas. You still saw some of the out of structure, the arm angles, the fun stuff he can do. But I thought it was an encouraging game just for him being a quarterback first. Still some turnovers, but the one at the end, the strip sack. So you still got to get those out of his system. But I thought it was, again, overall another step in the right direction for him yesterday.
Yeah, I continue to be encouraged big picture. It's literally just the turnovers. 2 more yesterday, and look, there were others at fault along with him. Michael Jordan, Ben Brown get beat really bad on a pretty basic line game, and him and Pop Douglas aren't on the same page late. But like, to me, that if there's one thing I want to see from the Patriots over these last 6 games, project number 1, can Drake Maye and Alex Van Pelt find a way to cut down on the turnovers? They don't even have to eliminate them entirely. Just cut down on the turnovers while still allowing him to be an electric playmaker. That would be the most encouraging thing I think you could see over the next 6 weeks. This is not me giving a referendum on his career. This is not me saying he turns the ball over too much to ever be good. The pace he's on right now is unsustainable. He has 9 turnovers. I'm not counting the Jets game. 9 turnovers and 5 full starts. Multiple turnovers in 3 of those 5. That's not sustainable. But he's a rookie, and they're not exactly contending for a Super Bowl this year. So he has time to get that number down. But it does have to come down. And that, to me, is the big project for him and Van Pelt for the rest of the year. If he can get that down, 6 games left, 6 turnovers or fewer in the last 6 games, I would feel, and I'm already encouraged by what I've seen, but I would feel like over the moon encouraged about him going into 2025.
Definitely. Yeah, the fumble, it was like the fastest sack recorded all season across like the whole league.
For a defensive lineman, yeah.
Yeah, so that was tough. He said on the radio, like, he had booty open, he should have got it out, but that was tough. And that, those line games have been an issue all year up front. But yeah, if it's just the turnovers, the turnover worthy play percentage was down. It was down like 2%. So that was an improvement, but still some big turnovers and costly moments. So with you, if that's, you cut those down to end the year while he's still playing like he has in the other areas, would be a really encouraging end of the year for Drake Maye there. So any other just overall last thoughts or players or anything else in your notes before we wrap this one up and let Taylor take over on Pat's Daily?
They couldn't. I talked about them not being able to stop the run. No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. I'll give Ramondre Stevenson a shout out just in pass protection. He throws his body in there. That was just something I noticed. So give him his flowers there. But we will wrap it up there. Again, Patriots drop it 28-22 to the Rams, falling 3-8 on the year. They are now back on the road next week to go play the Miami Dolphins. We will be back to preview that on Thursday. So make sure you're locked on to Patriots Press Pass to catch that. In the meantime, you can follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com. For his Patriots coverage on there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots coverage online there as well. So thank you everyone for tuning in with us tonight, and we will see you guys later this week.